Okay, geez. So this is the topic today is about immigration and just trauma in general. So uh, most people view good things as good, like a marriage, birth of a child, um, uh, uh, you know, get a new job. These are things positive, good. But actually, I want to change that a little bit for you, because things that you think are good may actually not, uh, uh, they may actually be causing you stress. So good things can also cause us stress. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the, what I call atypical traumas. So traumas that are atypical. So everyone understands atypical means out of the normal. So most people understand if someone go punch you in the face, that's a trauma. Everyone, if you go to jail, it's not good to be in jail. That's a trauma. If you get homeless, that's a trauma. Everyone understands this. You go to war, you see bad things, that's a trauma. These are what I call typical traumas. Atypical trauma is things that you may not think are bad, or you may not think they cause you the stress, and so you do not take them seriously. So I'll give you a couple of examples of atypical trauma. So one is marriage. Psychology, and that may seem strange, but psychology studies have shown next to the death of the parents, the next most stressful thing is the first year of the marriage. Just think about that. We're going to talk a bit about that. Another atypical trauma is childbirth. So when a new child comes into the world, everyone's giving gifts and all of these things. Back 20 years ago, one child cost you $300,000. People don't think about that. Child is a good thing. And that's true. But that's not the same as saying child is not a stressful thing. And it's okay to be stressed out by your kids. If you admit that, maybe you can get some help for that. Another example is immigration. You know, an immigrant comes to a country like Canada, it's great. It's a free country. Corruption is not as visible. I won't say it's not here, but it's not as visible. You know, you go to the grocery store, you have to pay the same price that anyone else has to pay. The education system is less corrupt. The roads are paved, the healthcare is free. It's a good country. So for all those reasons, immigration should be great. But it's not. Oftentimes people immigrate and they had more support back home than they have here. Just plane ride, whoosh, all of a sudden they have nothing. No money, no social system that they trust, which is usually family and friends. If you come like from Punjab, religious If you come from Punjab, a religious or religious country, religion is oftentimes part of the social network. There's like a masjid everywhere, there's a mandir everywhere, a gurdwara, a church. But here there is little support that you trust. In other countries, you don't call the police. You only call the police if you want to get shaken down. In this country, you can call the police, but will you? No. Immigrants won't. And so, immigration, when you come, all of a sudden, you can't even complain to your family about your stress. That's how we deal with stress a lot of times. We just talk it, right? Oh, I'm struggling, I'm this, I'm that. I think that we are, you call home, yeah, I'm struggling this and that, and they say, what you have to complain about? You're making so much money. Send us some of that money. Sponsor one of our friends or family to come there and this and that, and so you don't get the support there. Meaning, we'll talk more about that, but these things, which often happen one after the other over just a few years, meet the trauma triad. So what is the trauma triad? So trauma criteria, so the things that are needed for a event to permanently stress you out, i.e. to become trauma, means that in your head it's bothering you, and it will always bother you unless you deal with it. So that's called trauma. Trauma is the permanent effect on the head, on the mind, so that any time you think about it, stress you out. Even when you not think about it, stress you out. So a lot of childhoods, even though all those bad things happened long time ago, still stress you out. Even if you don't think about it. But all of a sudden you feel upset. All of a sudden this or that. So trauma criteria is very, very important to understand. And there's three things. One is you need something negative. Negative event. Okay? Just something negative in life. Or stressful. Sometimes it's not a negative event, it's just a stressful event. But life is full of that, It's not enough for it to bother you forever. You need two other things. The second thing that you need is what we call we call inadequate. So not enough support inside you. So everyone has the ability to support themselves inside themselves through things like, prayer, path, doing your namaz, doing your exercise. All of these things, yoga, writing, these are all what we call intrinsic, inside of us, ways we cope with stress. If we do these things, stress goes away. Sometimes that's all we need. So, stressful event happens and you do not have inside yourself enough support. But you know what? Even if you have stressful event and inside you do not have enough support, that's still not enough to make it permanent in your head. You actually need one last thing. The you need inadequate external, outside support. So what that means is you need to have something stressful, no support inside, or not enough. So you don't whatever you do on a daily basis, like you meditate, it's not enough. You're still bothered. But then, if you don't have anyone to talk to, you don't have anyone else to help you and say, yeah, that's hard. Let me help you with that. You don't have anyone you trust, or maybe you don't have anyone at all. Negative event, inadequate support inside and inadequate support outside. If those conditions stay true for about 3 weeks, so it takes 3 weeks usually. 3 weeks. After something stressful, usually you have 3 weeks. Some people will say up to 3 months before it becomes permanent. So if something bad happens, you don't meditate it through or do your yoga or your prayer or something and it still bothers you and you don't talk it out, if it's still bothering you in 3 weeks, what your brain will do is it will make it permanent. It'll put it somewhere. And it will stay there. And it will come out when the triggers come. That's what they call PTSD. So 3 weeks, PTSD. In some way, shape, or form. It will continue to bother. So let's go back. So nowhere here does it say what that stressful event is. It doesn't say it has to be that you were raped, or that you were attacked, or that you were something. It has to be just these criteria. So the reality is, if you think about it, well, let's say you get married. You think about it, you get married, right? Everyone's there for the party, but who's there after? When you start fighting with your wife, who's there to support you? That's stressful. When you're fighting with your wife, nothing stresses a man out more than fighting with his wife. You probably don't have support inside yourself if you haven't learned anything. Most people, they learn from their friends, and I was joking with someone yesterday. I was like, he was like a 20-year-old kid. I was like, has someone yet advised you? He's a new immigrant. Has someone yet told you, just take 2 drinks of alcohol and go to sleep. That'll fix your problem. Has someone given you that advice yet? He said yes, many people. Fortunately, he hasn't listened yet, but that's the. Because you got to work. You got to, And if you're arguing with your wife, you don't have support from anyone in your family of the type that's going to help you. Usually they say, oh, you need to control her. You need to beat her. You need to say this or you need to do that. But actually just listening to you, no. New baby comes. Well, now that the kid doesn't listen to you, the baby is sitting there, needs to be fed. Wah, wah, that's stressful. Now you don't have the time to meditate. Baby doesn't care. Baby needs the food. Middle of the night, stressed out. So no support inside yourself, or no time to do it, or both. And, your family and friends, that's why people get their, it's a good thing. Get your family to help you raise your kid. It's good if it's actually a support. A lot of times you invite the mother-in-law to come, interference and other things, and it messes it up. So it's not external support either. Well, guess what? Now your new baby has met the criteria. For over 3 weeks, you get a permanent damage to your head. Okay, let's go to the third one, immigration. Immigration's stressful. You know, before people immigrate, so before and after immigration, okay? So if we draw a graph, before immigration, a graph of what we call resources, most immigrants are wealthy in their country of origin. Not all, but many. Many are well off before they come, or they're at least supported by their families. So they have a lot of resources, resources. And, you know, they don't have a lot of stress. Stress. When resources is, when your strength is greater than the weakness, not a problem. You can deal with it. But think about it. In India, so you have, or like for example, India, you have your family, you have your religion. A lot of people, they like go there. They're like going to the Gurdwara every week. You know, there's all these weddings all the time. There's a place to go. Your friends from university or college or school, or you can call them, right? You have freedom. You have a car. You have all these things. You have money, you know? And then all of a sudden, airplane. What's it like here? All of a sudden, you don't have anything. Sure, you have a great country with lots of environments, lots of support. Do you know how to access that? Not really. So you have a lot of stress and very little support, inside or outside. And guess what? Immigration goes for a lot longer than 3 weeks. Day in, day out. I remember my dad, he would say this. And it took me a while to think about this. My dad, he was here for 42 years. He went back home. And he said to me, you know, at the end of every year, I promised myself I'd go back. 1 more year and I'm going to go back. 1 more year and then I'm going to go back. Just 1 more year and I'm going to go back for 42 years. And then my mom was telling me, she was like, you know how hard it is to listen to that? Because you don't know the security. Are you going to go back or are you going to be in Canada? This is what immigration does. Whether it's immigration or migration from a different province, for example, to Alberta, or whether it's from a different country, the reality is one airplane ride and all of a sudden, this is your situation. But you don't see it, you don't feel it, there's denial. It usually takes you another, 2 to 6 years. 2 to 6 years to become aware of the effect of this before it starts affecting your sleep, before it starts affecting your body. Most people who are like this, they're stressed out. They go and become workaholics. They cope with alcohol. And this is why you get a lot of addiction. Because one plane ride, no one prepared them, no one told them, hey, you should go, but make sure when you go there, start going to the mandir every day. Start going to the masjid every day. Really work hard to make a community. Don't just go and work 3 jobs. That's not what people do. They just go work like crazy and they think the money will fix all the stress. And after immigration, usually there's marriage, before or after, and usually there's kids. So what was happening is we're hitting the PTSD criteria many times. So then what happens is you get like this. You get like, a ball of stress. Now it just grows, and then in your 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it all blows up. And you think, I came to Canada for a good life. I did. I raised my kids. I did my duty. But now I'm drinking and I can't stop. Or I can't, figure it out. That's what we call immigration trauma. That is trauma from getting married. This is the same thing that breaks families apart. You get married, no one ever teaches you to be a husband or a wife. You learn from your parents who had a messed up marriage, where they didn't talk about love or feelings, or, you got hit a lot, I don't know, lots of things, right? If no one ever teaches you, then you learn from what you see. Most of what you learn is 0 to 11. Age 0 to 11. So then, this is where stress comes from. PTSD left undisturbed over time gives you triggers. So that's what PTSD is someone hits me with a bat, it hurts, and then if I see a bat on the floor, I remember that. I get bothered, as if that bat might be used to hurt me, even though if it's just sitting in like a store. That's what PTSD is. That's what a trigger is. Maybe you see a bat, but you don't think about that getting hit, but on your subconscious, you remember and you get stressed out, but you don't even know why you're stressed out. When you have a lot of PTSD evoking events, everything, someone told me, I'll never forget two things about immigration. Who picked me up at the airport? Who put me up for those few days? Who helped me get my SIN card and all these things? I'll never forget. That's what this person said. And the second thing she said, I'll never forget who helped me get my first job. Now, how many people come to Canada, they struggle for months to get their basic needs met. Now, they got a lot of PTSD. Every day is PTSD. Every day they're getting damaged in their mind because they're meeting these criteria. Stress, not enough support inside, not enough support outside. This is the diagnosis. Unless you understand the diagnosis, unless you understand that good things can be giving you PTSD. Why are children so hard to raise? It's because when they cry, it makes us on edge. Because we need to meet their need. But what if you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money? You're going to be upset. And that child is going to learn from your upsettedness. That's why a lot of, when we say in the therapy world, I always say immigration messes up 3 generations at a minimum. It messes up the parents of the immigrants because their family gets divided. One gets to go, one gets to stay. Who goes? What happens to the land? What happens to the money? Money is great in Canada. People send back money, but then what happens to that? So the parents, they get crazy. Second, get messed up is the immigrants themselves because of this. So You think about it, the parents, right? Negative event, kid leaves. That's stressful. There's these things they can't do about. One child leaves to go to Canada, not talking to the other family, problems, stress. They don't have enough support inside themselves. They've never been through this. And no one understands. Everyone is saying, Balle, Balle, you've gotten to Canada. You got your kid to Canada, good job. The immigrants themselves we've talked about, meets the criteria, and then their kids. The children of immigrants always struggle. If not for that, NAM would not exist. NAM is a reflection of my own journey to healing, because the kids are raised by people with PTSD. The kids are raised with people who think survival. Just got to get the money, work the 2 jobs. But those kids have emotional needs. You know, if you want to raise a kid, you should get down on your knees and play with them. Who has the time for that? But if you don't make the time, in 30 years, you will get the award, which isn't very nice. You know, your kids won't want to talk to you, the relationship problems, all of it. So immigration affects 3 generations. And it'll keep on affecting more unless someone gets help. Which is why we release these videos, which is why we have these programs. Getting therapy. You know, building, the treatment for this is you can't fix the stress, right? Life is stressful. Life will always be stressful. But do you have what it takes to eat up your stress for lunch and let it drive you forward, give you strength? That's it. That's what internal support is. You can learn that. You can build your external support. You know, go to marriage counseling with your wife. You know, you can go do things. Do prayers with your spouse or your family. Do things as a family. Build your network. Volunteer. Get into the community. Build a support network. As soon as you start doing that, your web of PTSD will crumble. Slowly. It just takes time, consistency, meaning doing it regularly, and effort. Putting some of your wanting to actually do it. So that's today's talk on immigration and atypical traumas. I'm happy to take some questions, if there's any questions about this. This is very important because a lot of shame is around this. You know, be a man. Men don't have problems. Don't cry. When you tell someone not to cry, I hope you don't tell your kids this. And if you do, tell them you were wrong, and you'll save them decades of therapy. Maybe you'll save their life, but you know the number one internal support is crying. How many of you have been told or demonstrated that only weak people cry? The kamjor, rona haiga kamjori. How many of you have been told that, or they tell you that, or you feel that from people? Everyone. This is one of the biggest things. Tears were given to us so that we can shed our emotions. Tears are good. Men need to cry. Men have a 50% higher suicide rate than women. Why? Probably number one reason is men don't cry as easily as women. If men learned to cry, they wouldn't become addicted as much. So teach your kids how to cry. And if you're a man, don't stop your wife from crying. My goodness, that's a silly move. Never stop your wife from crying. If it makes you uncomfortable, go in another room. But the better thing is to just sit there with her and give her a hug as she cries. No one ever taught you these things. I don't blame you. No one taught me these things. I had to learn them. You can learn them. And as you learn them, your web of PTSD will become easy. You'll become strong. Your addiction will become less powerful. So these are the things that you do need to learn and can learn. Any questions before we stop today? No, never any questions. That's good. Well, thank you. If I misspoke or offended, please forgive me.